What's up everyone, Shirley here. Pre-patch has been upon us for a while now, and today I've got some PvP and duels for you, as well as some Shadowlands news, and just generally talking about the update and the state of things. I do want to say at the beginning of this video, this is not some super high level, dueling thing. This is mostly just to showcase what warriors can do right now in pre-patch, what things are broken, what things aren't so great, etc. So don't, put too much weight into what you're seeing on screen. But it is a good demonstration of what ARMS is capable of right now. So, first and foremost, Shirley has been changed, for anybody that cares. I have changed back to an orc because of the race sale that's going on right now. So, it's a green orc, once again, not Maghar. I couldn't pass up the tattoos and the mohawk, what can I say? So, that's pretty cool. I'm happy with that choice. As far as PvE side of things go right now in the pre-patch, ARMS and Fury both kind of got hit fairly hard, I'd say, in the raid in Mythic Ny'alotha. If anybody's still, not really progressing at this point, but on farm for mounts and whatnot. It's definitely doable still, but, the loss to haste and corruptions definitely has hurt us some. But you're still going to want to be using Test of Might as ARMS anyway all the time. And then for your secondaries, any of the stat boosters are still fairly good, like Heart of Darkness, Clockwork Heart, etc. However, the Crushing Assault trait for Slam now is really good. So if you can get your hands on a high item level piece with Test of Might and Crushing Assault, that's probably going to be best in slot for you. For PvE anyway, because Crushing Assault is just scaled really well after the patch. And as of today of making this video, Blizzard has actually just nerfed Mythic Ny'alotha by 10%. Everything in there just does 10% less damage and has 10% less health. And frankly, it probably needs it, because everything, at the end of the raid anyway, felt fairly overtuned since it came out. But, we'll see next week when I go back in to see how big of an adjustment that is. I do want to say that Rend is pretty good now, especially for single targets. Because of our stats, they haven't went way down like they will once we level up to 60, so having high haste and high crit values, Rend is pretty good for single target right now, even with Test of Might. And also, Crucible of Flames has shot up in value. You're probably going to want to use it as a minor still, as ARMS of course, but Crucible, Breath of the Dying, and Conflict of the Strife are probably your go-tos for raiding right now. But anyway, moving on to PvP side of things and, the video. It's a good time to be an ARMS warrior, frankly, in pre-patch right now. It's been a ton of fun. Generally, the state of PvP right now is much more fast-paced than it was during BFA, especially at the end of 8.3. So I'm loving it, frankly. Even just random battlegrounds, it's a nice change of pace. That being said, things are definitely not balanced right now. Like I said before, Crushing Assault is extremely good. It's probably a little overpowered, frankly. Well, not probably, it is. It hits a little bit too hard, and it's probably propping up ARMS a little bit right now. But even without Crushing Assault, just having all these tools back at our disposal, like Reflect, Shattering Throw, and Ignore Pain especially, just makes the toolkit feel almost complete once again. I'm still missing Recklessness, but that's besides the point. And because we have Reflect baseline again, you can take Disarm a lot more, just all the time, passively. So in Battlegrounds, having Reflect and Disarm and Ignore Pain and Rally getting that buff coming up. Die by the Sword hasn't, got its cooldown lowered, but it just feels really nice having all these defensive options at your disposal. Warrior doesn't feel like a paper towel anymore in a 1v1. And dare I say, with Crushing Assault anyway, you can actually 1v2 people. So, depending on skill levels, etc. But in random Battlegrounds, at least, it's been a ton of fun. Crucible Flame is still pretty strong. I do want to say, even in PvP, you might consider even running it for a major for stuff right now. I've just been messing around with Conflict and Strife because having Disarm all the time is pretty nice. But other than that, onto some brief Shadowlands news today. They recently on the beta flopped around the Soulbind trees. I'm sure you might have heard about this already. This definitely changes, the beginning of the expansion, nothing later on. They haven't reorganized the conduits within the Soulbind trees, so we'll see how that all plays out. As far as what's looking good, though, it's it's pretty much the same, because you're going to get them not all at the same time, obviously. So, like, for the Venthyr, for example, the first one that you would get would be the haste buff, which Arms obviously really likes a lot of haste, so, you know, that's a nice bump right now. They also just squashed and well, not squash, well, they did, but they changed some of the conduits just kind of across the board, and Warrior in particular saw some interesting changes. They redesigned Crash the Ramparts, which was a conduit that buffed Overpower a while back, and now they've just buffed it a little bit since then. So what it does now is it just makes Overpower do 9% increased damage at its lowest rank, just flat out. And it's going to scale up to 21%. It's just going to be consistent, you know, passive damage increase if you decide to use this conduit. It's decent, but it's, you know, it's nothing to write home about. It's not very interesting. They added another new one, actually, not this week, but a while back, that's it's called Merciless Bone Grinder, and what it does is it props up our AoE a little bit. Arms still, frankly, has a lot of AoE issues right now, even in pre-patch, in PvE anyway, the way we apply Deep Wounds, but what it does is Blade Storm, at the end of your Blade Storm cast, your Whirlwind will deal 50% increased damage for 9 seconds, and that's going to scale all the way up to 120% increased damage. And right now, messing around with this on the beta, it does feel pretty good, frankly, especially if you pair it with the Whirlwind Legendary, which lets your Whirlwind hit an extra time for 80% damage if it hits 3 or more targets. It feels good, but it doesn't. It's kind of a band-aid fix that only props up Arms in its current state as it is. And what I mean by that is we only do good AoE damage within our burst window every time Blade Storm Warbreaker's up, basically. And all this does is make that window even better after that Blade Storm. It doesn't really help, you know, the fact that we don't do very good AoE outside of that. So I'm still looking for some changes there, but it's an interesting conduit nonetheless. They also buffed the Mortal Combo conduit a little bit, so Mortal Strike has a 10% chance to trigger a second Mortal Strike. It was 12 before, so I guess it's less than it was previously, but it's going to scale all the way up to 24%, which is pretty good. And as far as general stuff, this is the big one. Unfortunately, they have nerfed the Condemn conduit just into the ground. Previously, it would do 8%, Condemn would do 8% increased damage for each nearby target up to 40%, so in a 5-target AoE situation, you would just press Condemn over Whirlwind all the time. Now it will do 2% increased damage up to a maximum of 10. It's not great. With Sweeping Strikes up, it's still going to do more damage than Whirlwinding 5 targets, at least if you don't have the Legendary anyway for Whirlwind. But now it's much more close between just condemning 1 target or Whirlwinding 5. That still seems kind of silly, but, you know, it's definitely a nerf to Condemn. And at the same time, they also buffed the conduits that's buff Spear of Bastion. Not by a lot, but they made its initial damage bonus go from 20% to 25%, as well as the rage generation scales a little bit better now. So, you know, Bastion's back on the table, you know, especially if you're doing a lot of AoE-styled content. I think Condemn is still going to beat it out for pure single target, but they're definitely a lot closer now in like a dungeon environment or even PvP. So, you know, it remains to be seen still. The verdict's still out. But other than that, that's about all I wanted to cover. Oh, they actually did update some of the legendaries. A while back in my last video, they nerfed a bunch of the arms ones. So the Mortal Strike one, for example, they nerfed its chance to apply Colossal Smash. They just reverted that. They basically reverted all the nerfs. So the Executioner's Precision one, Exploiter, when you execute, it'll now make Mortal Strike do 25% more damage once again, stuff like that. And they also buffed the Battlelord Legendary, which is the Slam one. So your Slam has a 40% chance to reset the cooldown of Mortal Strike, which was pretty useless before because we're so rage-starved. But it will now also reduce the rage cost of Mortal Strike by 12, which feels pretty good. So, you know, it might actually be a viable option coming up. But anyway, that's about all I wanted to cover today. If you guys have any questions or thoughts, feel free to leave them down below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Peace.